Taking a look at Jasmy from the previous video, we can see that Jasmy has actually had a pretty decent move down, and that is after we got rejected at the 236 retracement. So I'm just going to redraw this chart because there seems to be a lot going on here. So at face value, the first chart we can draw is from the high all the way down to the low. We can see the 236 is at 13 and the 382 is at 17, which would suggest that in order for Jasmy to turn bullish, it has to get over 1317. In order to confirm that the macro bottom is in, Jasmy would have to get over 1750, which you can actually see is right at the entire accumulation period, or I guess at this stage would be considered distribution period of 2024, right? But by accumulation, this is what I was referring to. So as long as Jasmy is below 17.5, there's no reason to assume that the bottom is in. Now, if we zoom in, we can actually argue that a smaller time frame fib can be drawn, and we would make the case that in order for Jasmy to be bullish in the short term, it has to get over the 382 retracement again, which you can see we already hit the 236 at 11.5, and the 382 is now at 14. So one would make the case that Jasmy would have to get over 14 to turn bullish, and you can see the 236 here is now at 11.5. And we can actually draw one final fib from this most recent high, and you can see that beautifully the 382 retracement is right on top of the other 382 we already drew at 1172, and you can see the 618 retracement is already up at 14, which we already have drawn, and then the 786 is also inside of this box at 17. So one would make the case that we can only say that Jasmy has confidently bottomed once it gets over 1.7 cents. Until then, however, we would make the case that as long as Jasmy is below 1172, it's actually still considered very bearish, and a new low is technically possible. Once we get over 1172, we would speculate that the bottom is in, and a larger rally up to 14 would take place. But again, according to the macro data, we could rally all the way up to 17 and still actually be bearish. So in the short term, we would say, as long as Jasmy's below 11.7, a new low is technically still possible. We can only say a new low is not possible once Jasmy gets over 17.4. And in the short term, we can speculate that a new low is not possible once it gets over 1172. However, as long as we're below 1172, Jasmy is technically bearish, in my opinion.